I was standing on the balcony of my new apartment when I first saw him, barefoot, shirtless, and completely still, like he was part of the skyline. The building across from mine had one of those flat industrial rooftops, and there he was, just sitting on the ledge with a cigarette in his hand and a notebook in his lap, like it was totally normal to be 30 feet above ground contemplating life at sunset. I couldn't stop staring. It had been 4 days since I moved into this place, a low-rise in Silver Lake with cracked, stucco walls and a view of power lines and rooftops. I wasn't exactly thrilled about the move. I'd just gotten out of a long relationship, and the idea of living alone again felt more like a punishment than freedom. But rent was decent, the place had light, and after 6 months crashing on my friend's couch, I needed my own space. I had a beer in my hand and was halfway through texting my sister back when I looked up and saw him. For a moment, I wasn't sure if he was real. The whole thing felt a little surreal. The kind of quiet moment you only notice when your life slows down just enough to hear the world again. He had messy dark hair and a long, lean build, the kind that looked like it came from biking instead of the gym. His jeans were cuffed at the bottom, and his legs dangled over the edge of the roof like he didn't care how high up he was. I watched as he scribbled something down in his notebook, then paused, exhaled smoke, and stared at the horizon like it owed him answers. Something about that quiet intensity made my chest tighten a little. I didn't know why. He didn't see me. Or maybe he did, and just didn't care. I wanted to say something, maybe even wave, but what would I say? Hey, nice rooftop, bro? Not exactly a great opener. I ended up just watching him until he stood, stretched his arms above his head, and walked back toward the stairwell door on the rooftop. Gone. I didn't see him the next day, or the day after. But then, on a random Tuesday afternoon, I heard music. Not blasting, not obnoxious, just faint lo-fi guitar chords drifting through the air like they were part of the wind. I stepped out onto the balcony, and there he was again. Same guy, different vibe. This time, he was sitting cross-legged with a small amp beside him and a cheap electric guitar in his lap. A different notebook sat open on the ground next to him, this one messier, scribbled on like a high school math book. I leaned against the railing, pretending to scroll through my phone while watching him out of the corner of my eye. He was good. Not perfect, but expressive. The kind of playing that felt like it came from someone who actually needed to play, not just wanted to. After a few minutes, he looked up. Caught me. Our eyes met across the alley between buildings, and my stomach did this weird, traitorous flip. I gave him a small nod, some kind of half-smile. He held my gaze, expression unreadable, then lifted his chin in that classic straight guy nod. Casual. Easy. Then he went right back to playing. That was the first time we acknowledged each other. The next day, I found a note on my balcony, folded, weighed down by a small rock. Hey, sorry if the music's annoying. Let me know if it ever gets too loud. Mosses. C. No name. Just C. I turned the note over. Nothing else. No number. No apartment number. Just that. I stared at it for a while before grabbing a pen and writing back on the same paper. Not annoying, you're good. Better than the TikTok dancers across the street. I folded it, grabbed a rock from one of my dead plant pots, and tossed it onto the rooftop. That's how it started. Our notes became a thing. Little back and forths passed between buildings. Some were funny, some random. One time he asked what I'd rate his music on a scale from airplane bathroom to closeness in the rain. I gave him napping on a train through Italy. He left a smiley face the next day. I still didn't know his name, or what he did, or if he was gay, or bi, or anything really. All I knew was that C played guitar, wrote in messy notebooks, smoked too much, and lived for sunsets. And for some reason, I was getting hooked. A week later, I was taking out the trash when I almost walked right into him. He was standing by the building's side entrance, lighting a cigarette, hoodie pulled over his head. He glanced up, recognized me instantly, and smiled. Not that half nod from before, but an actual smile. Small. Crooked. But it hit me like a brick to the chest. Hey, he said, like we were already in the middle of a conversation. "Hey," I replied, trying not to sound weirdly out of breath. He gestured to the dumpster. "Exciting Friday night plans?" I laughed a little. "Don't knock it. I'm a big fan of adulting. Trash runs, laundry, existential dread. You know the vibe." He chuckled, the sound low and a little scratchy. "Yeah, I know the vibe." That was our first real interaction. We stood there talking for 10 minutes, maybe 15. Just small stuff. He asked what I did, graphic designer. I asked what he was always writing in those notebooks. Lyrics, mostly. His name was Cameron. I didn't say it out loud, but it fit him. Lean, quiet, a little messy. The weird part was how easy it was. I usually suck at first conversations. But with him, it didn't feel like performing. Just talking. That became a new routine. We'd bump into each other around the building, exchange quick comments, sometimes linger a little longer. The notes kept coming too. I started to look forward to them like little hits of dopamine between freelance projects and solo dinners. Then, one night he left a note that just said, "You ever come up to your own roof? The view's better than mine." I stared at it for a long time. My heart beat faster than I wanted to admit. I left a reply. "Never been. Not even sure how to get up there." He responded the next day. "Fire escape. Around 9? I didn't even hesitate. That night, I stood by the window, heart thudding in my chest, trying to act cool while clearly not being cool at all. I waited until it was a few minutes past 9. Didn't want to seem too eager. Then grabbed a hoodie and climbed the rusted fire escape up to the roof. He was already there, sitting on a folded blanket with 2 beers beside him and his notebook resting on his knee. There was music playing from his phone, some ambient instrumental stuff I didn't recognize, and a couple of candles flickering in mason jars like something out of an indie film. "Hey," he said, that same crooked smile playing on his lips. "Hey," I replied, crossing the gravel roof to sit next to him. We cracked open the beers. He passed me one without saying anything. The city stretched out in front of us, lights blinking, the air warm but still carrying that faint chill that meant fall wasn't far off. "I don't usually do this," I said quietly. "Do what?" "This," I motioned vaguely. "Random rooftop hangs with guys who leave mysterious notes," he smirked. "Yeah, me neither." There was a pause, but it wasn't awkward. Just quiet. "You live alone?" he asked. "Yeah, for now." "You?" He nodded. "Yeah. My brother used to live with me for a while. Moved to Oakland a few months ago. Been weird since he left. Quiet." I sipped my beer, unsure why that detail made me feel closer to him. "You seem like someone who likes the quiet," I said. He gave a soft laugh. "Only when I'm in control of it." That hit. I didn't know why, but it did. We talked until the candles burned down. About music, design, what Silver Lake was like before all the coffee shops turned bougie. He told me he used to play in a band before they broke up over some drama involving a girl and a stolen guitar pedal. I told him about my ex, a vague, not too specific version. He just nodded and didn't pry. Eventually, the conversation slowed and we sat in silence. Not tense, just easy. Our shoulders brushed once. Neither of us moved away. And when I finally stood to leave, he didn't say goodnight. He said, "Come up again sometime." And I said, "Yeah, I will." I walked back down the fire escape with my heart thudding like I'd just survived something, or maybe just stepped into something I couldn't name yet. That week, we didn't text, we didn't call. Just another note, folded in half and left on my balcony like it had always been part of the routine. "You left your bottle opener up here. Come grab it." It was probably the most transparent excuse anyone's ever made, but I didn't care. I waited until dusk, grabbed my hoodie, and climbed the fire escape without thinking twice. The bottle opener was sitting on the ledge next to his notebook. He didn't even mention it when I showed up. He was already sitting on the blanket again, this time with a bowl of popcorn and 2 mismatched coffee mugs filled with something warm. "Tea?" he offered. "Ran out of beer." Tea works, I said. Sitting beside him and accepting the mug like this was something we did all the time. We didn't talk as much that night. Not because there was nothing to say, but because the silence between us had started to feel like a language of its own. He played with the fraying edge of the blanket while I watched the lights across the city blink on one by one. "You always this chill with strangers?" I asked eventually, not looking at him. "Are we strangers?" That made me look. He didn't smile, just kept his eyes on mine like he was waiting for me to call bullshit. I didn't. "Guess not," I said. He nodded slowly and went back to staring out at the skyline. For a moment, I wanted to ask if he was seeing someone, if he'd ever been with a guy, if I was just projecting something that wasn't there, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I asked, "Why the roof?" He shrugged. "It's the only place where I feel like I can breathe." That sat between us for a minute. "You okay?" I asked, careful. He didn't answer right away. Then, "Not really, but I'm better up here." I didn't push. We sat there until it was almost midnight, the city buzz low in the distance, the air cooling fast. He shivered slightly, and I didn't even think. I just pulled off my hoodie and handed it to him. He looked at it, then me. "You sure?" "Yeah," I said. "You're cold." He slid it on slowly. It fit loose on him, the sleeves slightly too long, the hem bunching around his waist. When he looked at me again, there was something softer in his eyes. "I've never had someone do that," he said. "What? Offer a hoodie?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "No, just notice." That hit me somewhere deep. And before I could say anything, he reached for the notebook beside him, flipped it open, and tore a page out. He handed it to me without looking. I unfolded it. It was a rough sketch, clearly fast, unpolished, but it was of me, or at least the back of me, from the shoulders up, hair a little messy, collar raised. My posture was slouched the way it always got when I was relaxed. And across the top, in small handwriting, "You look like someone who could break and still be soft." I stared at it, unsure what to say. "I write lines when I can't say them out loud," he muttered. "You don't have to. Whatever. It's just a thing." I folded the page carefully and tucked it into my pocket. "I like it," I said quietly. He didn't answer, but his smile told me everything. We didn't touch that night, not really, but our arms brushed more than once. Our knees bumped, and when I stood up to go, he surprised me. "I want to see you tomorrow." "Yeah?" "Yeah. Not on the roof, downstairs. You free for breakfast?" I nodded. "Yeah, I am." He looked relieved, like something he hadn't dared hope for had just come true. "I'll make coffee," he said. "You bring toast." I laughed. "Deal." When I climbed back down the fire escape, I felt high. Not in a chemical way. Just lit up. Charged. Like the version of me that had been sleepwalking through heartbreak for the last year had finally opened his eyes. I woke up the next morning before my alarm, which hadn't happened in years. My stomach was doing this nervous flutter thing, like it couldn't decide if I was about to go on a date or to a job interview I actually cared about. It was probably the toast part that got me. It was such a dumb, small detail, but the way he said it, "You bring toast," like he already knew I'd say yes. Like he was already picturing us sitting across from each other, talking about nothing over burnt bread. I made extra. By the time I knocked on his door, I had 2 slices and a paper towel, still warm, and a jar of raspberry jam I found in the back of my fridge that I couldn't remember buying. He opened the door wearing a different hoodie, same loose jeans, hair wet from a shower, and he smiled like he'd been waiting. "Jam?" he asked, eyeing the jar. "I don't half-ass breakfast," I replied. "Come in then, Toastmaster." His place was smaller than mine. A studio, one big open room with plants on every windowsill and a guitar case leaning in the corner. The walls were covered in printouts, sketches, notes, like someone had exploded a mood board and just never bothered to clean it up. But it felt lived in, it felt like him. He poured coffee into 2 chipped mugs and nodded toward the tiny kitchen table. I sat down, watching as he slid into the chair across from me, legs stretched out, mug in one hand, toast in the other. "So," he said, "what's your story?" "Big question for 9 a.m.? He grinned. "I'm awake. I need a distraction." I shrugged. "Not much to tell. Grew up in Sacramento, moved here for school, stayed after, tried dating, failed at it. Now I make logos for startups that all think they're going to be the next Google." He tilted his head. "And you're happy doing that?" "No," he laughed. "At least you're honest." "What about you?" He sipped his coffee. "Lived here my whole life. My mom moved out when I was 10. Dad raised us, me and my brother. He was cool, but he worked nights a lot. We kind of raised ourselves." He paused. "I started writing music because I was bored. Kept doing it because it gave me something to hold on to." "Do you want to do it, like professionally?" He looked at me, and for a second, I saw something behind his eyes. Not fear, exactly, but maybe hope wrapped in doubt. "Yeah," he said finally, "but I don't know if I'm good enough." "You are," I said, before I could stop myself. He blinked. "I mean, I've heard you. From the balcony. You've got something." His face flushed slightly, and he smiled down at his toast like he wasn't used to hearing that. We talked for over an hour, about dumb things, mostly. Worst dates. Favorite movies. He thought Hereditary was brilliant. I thought it was 2 hours of trauma with a decapitation thrown in. He said pineapple on pizza should be a crime. I told him that was homophobic. It felt easy. Effortless. Then, at one point, he leaned forward and said, "I'm not used to this." "To what?" "This," he gestured between us. "Whatever this is, me neither." And we just sat there. Not awkward, just real. Eventually, he stood, picked up both mugs, and rinsed them in the sink. I watched him from behind. His shoulders, the way his shirt clung slightly to his back. My stomach was still fluttering, but quieter now. Comfortable. He turned back around. "You want to come up later? I've got something I want to show you." I raised an eyebrow. "On the roof?" He nodded. "Yeah. Bring a jacket." I smiled. "You got it." As I left, I found myself whistling. That was new. By the time sunset rolled around, I was practically pacing my apartment. Jacket on. Then off. Then on again. I didn't even know why I was nervous. We'd already hung out. Already talked. But this felt different. He said he had something to show me. The air was cooler than usual when I stepped onto the fire escape. The sky was a smear of orange and blue, the kind of light that made everything feel softer, like the city had lowered its voice. When I reached the rooftop, Cameron was already there. He'd set up the little amp again, the same cheap electric guitar plugged in, but he wasn't playing. He was sitting cross-legged, eyes closed, fingers gently resting on the strings like he was just listening to something inside his own head. He opened his eyes when he heard me. No smile this time, just a look, focused, intent. "Hey," he said, "come here." I crossed the roof and sat beside him, careful not to knock over the amp or step on any of the papers spread around us. I glanced at one. It looked like lyrics, but nothing was finished. Just phrases, scratches, little pieces of something not yet whole. "You said you had something to show me," I said quietly. He nodded. "It's not done," he said. "But I've been working on this one for weeks. I didn't know what it was about. Not really. But last night, after you left, it kind of clicked." He adjusted the strap, settled the guitar in his lap, and started to play. It was slow, simple. Just a few chords strung together like loose thoughts. But the way he played, every note felt like it was searching for something. Reaching. Then he started to sing. The words were soft, raw, half-finished. But I heard them. Really heard them. It wasn't a love song. Not yet. It was a maybe. A what if. A quiet confession wrapped in metaphor. "You talk like someone who's been through the fire, but still smells like home. And I've never been good at looking directly, but you make it hard not to. My chest tightened with every word. He stopped before the last verse, letting the final chord ring out and fade into the city noise. I don't know how it ends yet, he said, eyes still on the strings. But that's what I've got. I sat there, stunned. I didn't even know what to say. It was like hearing a secret you didn't know you already knew. That was about me, I said finally, voice low. He didn't flinch. Yeah. Silence again, this one heavier, closer. I looked at him, really looked. The slope of his jaw, the cut on his knuckle, the way his bottom lip always looked like he was about to bite it but never did. Then I said, I don't know how mine ends either. He turned to face me, his expression unreadable. But I know it starts here. He let out a breath, shaky but quiet. And then, without thinking, without planning, I leaned in. And he met me halfway. It wasn't some cinematic kiss. No fireworks, no orchestral swell. It was careful, hesitant. Like two people who had imagined it 100 times, but were terrified it might break the spell. His hand found my cheek. Mine found the back of his neck. And for a moment, the city disappeared. When we finally pulled back, he kept his forehead against mine. You still don't know how it ends? He whispered. No, I said, but I'm not scared of it anymore. He nodded, eyes still closed. Then, me neither. Waking up the next day felt like waking into a new version of my life. Same room, same cracked ceiling. But something had shifted. It wasn't dramatic. There wasn't a wild night to regret or explain away. There was just that kiss. That rooftop. And him. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. His voice. That lyric. The weight of his forehead against mine after we kissed. The way neither of us had tried to turn it into anything bigger than it was in that moment. But it was big, at least to me. I got up, made coffee, and stood at the window for too long, hoping, half expecting, to see him appear across the way. He didn't. No notes, no guitar. Just an empty roof and the quiet hum of the city going about its business. Around noon, I cracked. I walked across the building, climbed the stairs this time instead of the fire escape, and knocked on his door. Nothing. I waited. Knocked again, softer. Still nothing. I stood there for a minute before I slid a sticky note from my back pocket and scribbled something down. Wasn't a dream, right? Hit me up. Midas J. I stuck it on his door and went back to my apartment, telling myself not to spiral. Not to overthink. Not to turn one perfect moment into a disaster in my head. I was midway through making lunch when I heard a knock on my door. I didn't even dry my hands, just yanked it open. Cameron stood there in a beanie, oversized hoodie, guitar slung on his back like he hadn't even realized he was still carrying it. He looked tired, but not in a bad way. Like he hadn't slept because he didn't want to. Hey, he said, hey. There was a pause. Then, he held up a small notebook, the same kind he always carried. It was open to a new page. In his messy scrawl, it said, "Definitely not a dream." I smiled. Come in. He stepped inside like it wasn't even a question, set the guitar gently against my wall, and flopped onto the couch like he'd done it 1,000 times. "Sorry I didn't come by," he said. "I needed the morning." "You okay?" He nodded. "Yeah, just had to let it settle." I sat beside him, not too close, just enough. "I don't want to mess this up," he said, eyes on the floor, "whatever this is." "You're not," I said. "We're just figuring it out." He looked at me then. Really looked. "Have you ever done this before?" he asked. "What, kiss someone on a roof at midnight after exchanging cryptic notes and emotional tea?" That earned a laugh. "No, I mean with a guy." I hesitated. Yeah, I said. Once. College. It didn't end well. He nodded. Same. Well, sort of. I didn't even get to the part where we kissed. Just a lot of almosts. And silence. I shifted slightly, turning toward him. Do you want this? I asked. Because if you're unsure, I can take a step back. No, he said instantly. I'm sure. I don't want it to be some rooftop fairy tale that falls apart the second we try to live it in daylight. I reached out, touched his hand. It's not. He looked down at our hands. Then back at me. You want to go for a walk? He asked. Now? He stood. Yeah, it's too nice out. I've been cooped up writing songs about air and heartbreak for days. I need to move. All right, I said, grabbing my keys. Let's go ruin our shoes on the hills. We spent the afternoon walking around the neighborhood. Slow, aimless loops through residential streets and hidden staircases. We didn't talk about what we were. We didn't label anything. But something had clearly shifted. At one point, he bumped my shoulder lightly with his. Did you always think I was into guys? He asked. Casual. No, I said. But I always kind of hoped, he smiled. Me too. By the time the sun started going down, we'd made our way back to my apartment. I offered him dinner, half joking. I make decent pasta. I accept, he said. But only if we eat it on the roof. So we did. We ate on the roof with our legs dangling over the ledge like we had nothing to lose. The pasta was overcooked, the wine was cheap, and we didn't even bring napkins. But none of that mattered. The city stretched out around us, blinking like it was watching. Cameron was quiet for most of it, but it wasn't that kind of silence. It was the good kind, the kind that settles in when you don't feel like you have to fill space just to keep someone around. After we finished, he leaned back on his elbows and let out a long breath. This doesn't feel like real life, he said. It feels like a really well-written indie movie. Yeah, I said, nodding. But the kind where the characters actually get together at the end. He turned to me, one eyebrow raised. So this is the end? No, I said, grinning. This is the part where the credits should roll, but the story keeps going anyway. He smiled, slow and soft, and nudged my knee with his. You're better at this than I thought. Better at what? Being the guy from the other building. The one with the balcony and the plants that keep dying. Hey, I said, mock offended. At least I try to keep them alive. Your basil is a war crime. We laughed. The kind that comes from deep in your chest. The kind that only happens when you're full. Not with food, but with the presence of someone who gets you. Then he said, I don't know how fast I can do this. I looked at him. This isn't a race, I said. I'm not asking for anything more than what you've already given me. He nodded slowly, then reached out, taking my hand in a way that was casual, but firm. Decided. I want to try, he said. That's all I want, I replied. We sat there until the sky turned from gold to violet, until the city lights shimmered like stars that had fallen just a little too low. Eventually, he walked me back to my apartment and stood awkwardly in the doorway like he wasn't sure if he should stay or go. You want to come in? I asked. He didn't answer. Just stepped inside. We didn't do anything that night. No undressing. No rush. We just lay on the couch, his head on my chest, his hand under my hoodie, fingers spread across my ribs like he was trying to memorize the shape of being near someone. I ran my fingers through his hair until I felt his breathing even out. And somewhere in the middle of the night, I whispered, not loud enough to wake him, I'm really glad you climbed up on that roof. He didn't answer, but I swear I felt him smile against my shirt,